and welcome to Coffee and Chat with me, Hanne Grice, clinical animal behaviourist trainer and animal sciences lecturer. I've got a brilliant guest for you today, thinking about now where students have just got their exam results, some may be going through clearing, others have already got their places accepted, or for some students they'll be thinking about embarking on GCSEs, apprenticeship, sixth form college or other. So I thought it'd be great to have Lauren Twiddle here with me, who's a zookeeper, and about herself to change paths with her animal sciences, going into education to lecture and teach the future zookeepers of tomorrow. So thank you, Lauren, so much for giving up some of your precious time to come and speak with me.
No, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to share some of my thoughts with you today.
Brilliant, and hopefully some exciting stories about your times as a zookeeper and your future new direction, I should say, with regards to education too. So thinking about what's happening right now in your career path, you are a zookeeper, you've been full-time for quite a while, and suddenly this September you will be embarking on teaching others who want to go into animal sciences, keeping, behaviorism, and so on. So can I ask you to step back in time and tell us what inspired you into this career in the first place, working with animals and specifically zookeeping?
So when I was at school and we got encouraged to do work experience, I knew I wanted to do something with animals, but I just wasn't sure what in particular I wanted to do. So I started to get work experience places in a variety of things, went to vets and farms, and I had a placement at a wildlife park, and I just fell in love with the job there. I did 2 weeks at this wildlife park working with a variety of zoo animals, and I left there in tears. I just knew I loved it so much. So then I myself went through clearing at the end of my A-levels, and I just knew then that was my time to do what I really love to do and not what I thought I should be doing. I think that's a big thing for anyone who's going through the same thing. Go with what you really want to do, not what you think you should be doing or you feel pressure to do.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity and I was like, right, I know what I love doing with my experience. And I went and did a BSc in zoology from that point. And then from there, I did internships at Chester Zoo. And then after finishing my degree, I got a job working full time as a zookeeper at Knowsley Safari. So, yeah, from that point onwards, I knew what I needed to do from there.
That sounds amazing. And it sounds like you've worked with quite a few species across that time. So could you give us a taster into some of the species that you have worked with?
So majority of my experience is hoofstock. So a lot of work with rhinos, giraffes, camels, lots of deer species. Ungulates is the proper word for all of those. I think that comes from my background with horses. I just knew that would be a smooth transition from horses into hoofstock. So my work experience I worked with other like primates and things like that, but I just knew hoofstock was the one for me when I started with that.
And that's a really good point, because we may have some questions listening to this chat or watching this chat who have an interest in other species, and sharing your experience of how you were passionate about horses and road horses and how you took that to working with other animals is amazing. So thinking about your days zookeeping, what on earth does a typical day of a zookeeper look like? Because I know you can buy these experience days, and I've done that myself, and I've moved lots of rhino poo, but surely there's a lot more to it. So could you give us a sort of an idea?
I mean, you're not wrong with that. There's a lot of cleaning involved. But from the start of the day, it's first of all health checks. So every single animal always gets a full health check every day. Visual, just to check everyone's okay, everyone's where they should be. Lots of cleaning, but then also the fun bits of the job. So you've got the training, the desensitization and things like that. We did recall training with rhinos, get them maybe like off the reserve into the house, or recall training for feed, so you can feed different species in different areas. So that was, yeah, that's a good part of the job as well.
And how do you train a recall for your rhinos?
So it starts with a lot of reinforcement straight away. Make sure that they understand that whatever signal you're using means food. That's how we do it with any species. So like if they do start slipping on the recall, bring it back to basics and make sure they 100% know that this whistle, this bell, this call
Mhm.
means food, and then start building your distance up for your recall again. That is probably the biggest tip for any species.
Coming back to, you mentioned the term desensitization, and for those who are watching or listening to this who may not understand what that term means, could you kind of give some insight into what it is and how you applied that with a particular animal that you work with?
Yeah, so I'll go with rhinos as well. For desensitization, we did blood draw training. So you'd need to get blood from their ear was the main place you'd go for. But obviously for them it's a different experience to what they've ever had before. So to have them in a secure, safe environment, positive reinforcement with feed the whole time to encourage them like this is a nice, safe place to be. And you start off with just stroking their ear with your hand because they're used to the tactile training. So you get like mud application and things like that they enjoy from us. So you do that just around that area you need desensitizing, and then you slowly add in the smells of the disinfectant we'd use and things like that, just slowly adding more and more to this environment that they're already safe in until you can have the vet there, a new person as well, which is obviously a big thing for these animals, and get the blood draw done without any faff at all, nice and calm environment. That started from, in the beginning, an animal that might not even want to be touched. So this whole process, having a new person come in, new smells, and they're like, oh, it's fine. Like
Yeah.
I'm desensitized to this. I don't mind. Do whatever you need.
Yeah, so in lay terms, getting used to
Yeah.
the end result, which is being able to have the blood drawn, all performed cooperatively, watching
Yeah.
their responses to make sure you're working at their pace, isn't
Yeah,
it?
as well to give them, if they need to move, if they need to leave that environment, to let them have that option. That was
Yeah.
a big thing for us, was if they're feeling stressed or showing stressful behaviours, to let them leave. It's always a choice for these kind of desensitization training sessions. Otherwise, it's a forceful situation rather than a choice.
Exactly. You can't stick a shock collar on your rhino to get your ear drawn.
Definitely not.
So thinking about the other aspects of your role, you would have come across, visitors, as well as you talked about the vets that you had dealings with. Thinking about sort of your typical day, how do visitors play into your role?
Yeah, so when I was on the safari, it was a lot more interactive with visitors than what you might have in a zoo setting, because usually at zoos they've got different teams to manage the people, whereas on the safari drive, it's the keepers obviously that are responsible for the animals and the people on there.
Right.
So if you are on patrol, which means you're in a vehicle yourself, driving around the same, you have your own area to keep an eye on, basically. Make sure that everyone's safe and everyone's happy, report back any issues. Your interactions with the people might be sometimes positive. People pull you over and say, I'm having such a great day. Can you tell me about your animals? And that was so lovely. And you'd tell them about the babies you had or the old ones that are getting special care. Like you can share all your information with them. Um, but equally, you might have some negative interactions where, for example, people would get out of their cars on the drive, which is never a good idea when you've got rhinos running around. And obviously, as a foreign object, really, in that rhino's eyes, they're going to try and fight that object, and that would be quite stressful for the person on patrol because you've got to then go and intervene and get that person safe again.
Mm.
Um, yeah, a lot of responsibility is held when you're looking after the visitors.
So it sounds like from what you're saying, not only your role as a zookeeper, as doing some of the sort of uh, typical husbandry stuff that you mentioned, like the cleaning, but you've got the training elements, which you said you really enjoyed and things like that. You have to be a people person, by
Yeah.
the sounds of it, very similar to some of the other roles within the animal industry, be it behaviourists, veterinary staff, and so on. So thinking about that more, what advice would you give somebody wanting to go into the field of zookeeping? Is there anything, for example, you wish you had known before you started out?
I wish I'd have known the sheer amount of work that goes into that job. Obviously, every single job in the world requires a lot of effort and a lot of attention to do well in the job, but it's such like it's just so competitive in that field because everybody loves the job. So you really need to work hard and understand that your entire life is going to revolve around your role as a zookeeper, which for
Mm,
some people they thrive off that and they love that their life revolves around these amazing animals. I just wish that I'd have known truly how much my personal life was going to merge into my work life with that role. Equally, just knowing that balance might be a little bit shifted from what other people have in different roles.
yeah. And that echoes again, thinking about the wider animal industry, you know, the veterinary professionals, the behaviourist trainers, those working in rescue, the risk of burnout is really high in those areas. Are you seeing similar patterns within zookeeping?
I think so. I think because you get so emotionally attached to these animals that aren't yours, you put your all into them, and it's such hard work. And it's long days, and in the winter when you're out in the rain and the snow for the whole time you're at work, it is really draining sometimes. And I think that is the summer compared to the winter are two different jobs. So it's just taking every day as it comes, and
Mm,
yeah, burnout can be really common. I mean, as you've said, all animal industries, you put in your heart and soul into them, aren't you? So
mm.
yeah, just be prepared for that if that's the field you want to go into. But it's very rewarding when you do find
Yeah.
yourself in a place that you're enjoying.
So again, to sort of clarify and reflect on what you said, it sounds like you need to be fit, you need
Yeah.
to like the outdoors and all weathers,
Yeah.
and it can be a real challenge in terms of getting that balance right, which I think we all of us feel that
Yeah.
you know that work with animals, as you said, but particularly I remember you saying to me that your rest days aren't really your rest days.
Yeah.
Um,
Tend to spend this is from a hoof stock experience as well. So if you worked with like invertebrates or small mammals, might be a very different experience. But with
mm,
large mammals, obviously it's a lot of heavy lifting. Because it's very large animals, houses that you're cleaning.
And the average rhino can drop 50 pounds of dung every 24 hours, as much as a whole bale of hay.
So for me personally, you'd work 4 days and have 1 or 2 days off. And I
mhm.
found that 1 or 2 days I was spending horizontal, doing nothing,
Wow.
just resting my body because it's so physically demanding. If you don't rest, you can't work the next time you're in because you're just so
Yeah.
tired. But the mental strain, obviously the stress, obviously I spoke about with keeping people safe and everything and keep the animals safe. It is a lot to take on. So yeah, be mindful that your days off won't be spent always doing fun things. It might just be getting ready for the next day at work.
I always remember years ago when I was really little and SeaWorld was very popular and some of these other sort of aquatic entertainment shows, and always thinking, wow, I'd love to be a marine biologist and work with some of those animals. However, the reality, you know, having spoken to quite a few people that work in that and including yourself with the species that you work with, it is hard work.
Yeah. You see the
Um,
snippets that are amazing, and they are the things you've got to hold on to as a zookeeper. Really remind yourself about, I do love this job because obviously when it's a hard winter and you're knee deep in mud for the fifth day in a row, like it sometimes is tricky. So you've got to remind yourself, like, why am I here? What am I enjoying about my job? And you've got to make sure you keep reminding yourself.
Yeah, comes back to your point about do a job that you're passionate
Yeah.
about, that you're interested in. And I just wondered with the pandemic a few years ago now, there were lots of stories on sort of zoo chat forums about some animals thriving with the closures and lack of visitor presence,
Yeah.
while others struggled a bit more.
Yeah.
Have you got any insights from what you were aware of or chatting with others?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career actually in 2021. So I was just post the lockdown. And I remember the zoo had only just opened a few weeks before I started my internship after COVID.
Yeah.
And I remember the keepers then saying that the giraffes in particular, because they're quite timid animals, really, they wouldn't go outside the first time. They're like, what is going on? Because they were enjoying the quiet. But equally, they're inquisitive animals. So
Yeah.
once they got used to the busyness again, they were happy as anything again because they'd be like, oh, what's that person doing over there? What's that person doing over there? So it's about, it kind of goes back to the desensitization again, isn't it? Like it's whatever they're used to. So if they got used to that, the people again,
Mm.
they were back happy doing whatever they were doing.
did they recognize your signals compared to another keepers, or did you find that you developed a relationship with some more than other species?
Yeah, definitely. So like depending on which section you worked on more, they would definitely react differently to different keepers, or even male versus female, because obviously your voice changes, or you would see a difference in like the senior management would get a better reaction than people that had just started out, because obviously they're
Yeah.
like, who are you? Who do you think you're shouting me for?
Yeah, and I guess, you know, for many of these species, their ability to detect through other ways like scent and everything
Yeah.
is superior compared to ours as well.
Yeah.
I know that you are pausing on zookeeping, and that huge amount of knowledge, understanding, theoretical and practical skills now into the classroom. So this is amazing. So how do you go about using all that academic knowledge, all that practical skill to apply that now into the classroom? What's your plan? How are you going to tackle this new species that is secondary school?
I think it's nice to be going into this new field with a history in another career. Like I have things that I can talk to my students about and relate to the real world when I'm talking about these subjects. And be like, actually, this is real life. Like these things in science do happen. Here's an example. Like it's nice to have that go between the real world and the classroom, and that like I am the go between.
Yeah, and I was going to guess for your physics lessons and things like that, you can use weights of rhino
Yeah.
and discuss
A rhino
fluids.
versus a camel. How many camels do I need?
So that leads me to ask about data collection and your research specifically. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your academic research and how that influenced your work as a zookeeper?
Yeah, so my final project for my master's, I did Roan antelope, which is an African antelope species. I made a body condition scoring system tailored to this species. I made this because there wasn't one readily available to me as a zookeeper, and I wanted to track this animal's welfare a bit more closely, because there are other systems for other species. So I thought, well, why not one for the Roan? And doing this research and collecting this data, I was able to be in contact with loads of different zoos across the country and see how they were managing their animals and the condition that they were in. And it came to me, obviously, in one big like sum of data. And looking through that, I was like, this is so helpful now that I've published, like I've sent back now, actually, I sent it through to all the other zoos, my finished products, and they were saying, oh, I'm so grateful for this. I can now track the weight in just a visual way. You don't have to be tactile with animals or anything. It's it's a non-contact, no interference method of managing their welfare, and everyone's been so positive and so encouraging for it that yeah, very nice to hear it from everybody else.
Yeah, and body conditioning is a way, just for, again, for people listening or watching, it's almost like when you go to the vets and you see diagrams of your cats, your dogs, and you're looking at waist and coat and things like that. And this was the first time it'd been done for this species, right?
Yeah, definitely the first that I've found, and obviously I've done quite a bit of research on this. There is antelope generic systems out there, but not one tailored for the Roan. Obviously each species varies, which is why I thought let's make one tailored for them.
And the question that people may be wondering is why? And I just wondered whether you could give some insight about what you told me. Yeah, in terms of the Roan deer, because they look very cute. But
yeah, they're really a sweet animal. Their fight or flight is so strong towards aggression, that you wouldn't want to be in the same area as them, because some systems out there you'd feel for their ribs, you'd feel for their hips, things like that, whereas you just wouldn't be in that position without a lot of training and a very safe area that not a lot of zoos would have in place. And it's like time consuming doing this. So it's just a safe way and a quick way to get all the information you need from these animals to manage their weight, because if you've got an animal too overweight, too underweight, their reproductive success is going to be quite low. And just the general health and well-being of that animal is going to be low. So that's my why, is like making
Yeah.
it quick, easy, safe, and just general good health for that animal.
And that's the other thing, you know, you talked about non-contact, and a lot of time your role as a zookeeper, whether you're training or looking at body condition, you can't, with some of the species who work with, get near them for your safety and for theirs as well.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic tool. So I'm excited to hear that it's published now and it's being utilised. So I guess the next question specific to your research is, what did you find out? Was there anything that's had a big impact?
Yeah, the big things I wanted to take into account when making the system was obviously to make it visual only, to do with their, the way that they are as a personality wise, and also to try and acknowledge that different life stages will impact their condition. So I had a few juvenile animals taken into account, as well as like breeding males or females that had just they had a young at foot or things like that. You've got to take that into account, because it might, maybe for example, a male will look a lot chunkier, maybe potentially overweight, but is that not expected of a male that's defending his territory and his female? So I thought that was quite a nice thing to include, because a lot of research on it doesn't include things like that. So it was important to me to be like, actually take into account their life stage and what's required of their body at that time.
Yeah. And I guess you know, you tell me, you're the expert here, but you know, if that understanding wasn't there, would that have an impact in terms of, say, the amount they're given feeds, if there's an assumption that the animals are overweight, or you know, were there any sort of real subtleties that you discovered that was indicative of physiological or behavioral issues? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, the main thing was just a lot of these animals are fed as a group. And that is one of the challenges of this, is they're a herd animal, so splitting them for feeds is quite difficult. So
Right.
trying to take into account the group as a whole, are they over, underweight, or do we need to increase due to lactation or things like just taking it as a blanket condition, I guess. Again, it goes down to, you could train them to be separate, but whether that's feasible or not. Because I had for our one of the zoos that gave me their information, they had an individual that is struggling with their health, and they said that it was going to be really helpful for them, because they know that this individual is underweight already, but they want to make sure she's not getting any worse condition. And I thought that was really nice to know that it was going to a direct individual to help them with that, because they do already feed her separately. So it's just keeping track of, is this working, is this not? Because obviously you can look at an animal and go, oh, I think they look the same, but do they really? Like that's
and as you say, you know, even beyond life events, you've got weather conditions, I guess, would influence, because they're outside. So
that was actually a good point that someone made, and I put that in my discussion, is in the winter, obviously they grow very thick coats. So it's hard to see their condition underneath the coats. But I guess with that comes, they're obviously in a good enough condition that they can grow these thick coats. So it's a positive that you can't see them, because obviously in a bad condition, they'll be struggling to put the energy into their hair. So yeah, I found that an interesting comment that one of the keepers made to me, actually.
Yeah, fantastic. And we know that, because we've joked about, you know, working with a new species, and that is secondary school. What excites you most about this new chapter?
It's just a new challenge, first of all, completely new, but it's bringing what I already know into the new challenge. So I've got that comfort blanket of my animal sciences and things, and I'm just excited to educate and inspire like the next generation of animal lovers, really. And even if they're not animal lovers, just science lovers, and bringing them into like such great industry. There's so many different fields to go into.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to play a part in them first steps of getting into this industry.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because even if you're not necessarily you know, academically minded, so you might not be a mathematical whiz, but you're a brilliant artist, there's loads of opportunities out there if you love animals and want to work with animals, be it, you know, drawing, working in the field, helping researchers that way. So many different opportunities. So that leads me to what is your sort of key takeaway message for anyone that would love to get into the zoological field?
I would say do your research, first of all, know what the plan is, and get as much experience as you can. So for me, I had nearly a year of unpaid experience before I got a job, and just being fully committed and give it your all. Like, it's a great field to be in, and it's going to be a lot of work, but it is so enjoyable. Be prepared and enjoy every step of it.
Great advice. Lauren, thank you so much for giving up your time to speak with me. It's been brilliant hearing about some of your experiences, sharing your insights and advice for the future keepers of tomorrow. So thank you again, and see you soon.
Thanks very much.